diesel. Nigeria was flaring this daily for well over 30 years. You think of a nation where the gas is captured, right, piped and transmitted throughout the length and breadth of this country, so that generation is localized. My philosophy is this: anything that is essential must be local. You cannot generate power from Lagos, Egbin Power Station, for instance, to supply Abuja. You need to localize for efficiencies. Now, if you were able, and you can do this in 30 months, collect all the gas that you're currently flaring, pipe them throughout the length and breadth of this nation, localized generation, you would increase power generation astronomically. Take a city like Kano. Kano used to be the second largest industrial zone after Lagos. Kano is literally dead economically. There's no power source there. Why don't we have gas in Kano? Even Abuja doesn't have gas. So we have failed in that respect, trying to use the same traditional methods. No, power is essential as water is today in modern living. So you've got to find other ways of generating power to make it available to all. Like I said, what is essential must be local.
Thank you very much. The candidate of the Social Democratic Party there, Mr. Donald Duke. I saw Mr. Fasua shaking his head as Mr. Donald Duke was speaking there. Nigeria has a 17 million housing deficit.
20 million, actually.
Okay, 206 federal roads to be fixed, 1.7 trillion naira to fix those roads. How would you go about fixing the infrastructure problem?
Thank you very much. I was shaking my head because, you know, we now suffer a certain level of elitism as a people, especially those of us who are lucky enough to be running for president. We probably don't know who Nigerians are. You know, and if we do know who Nigerians are, we would understand that the infrastructure problem is not about money.
What is it about?
We're not even maintaining what we're building, right? You know, we could actually have a maintenance budget in this country for the next 10 years, that anything we build, we maintain. I've been to some countries that don't have as much infrastructure as we have. But when we build it, we destroy it immediately. And that's why I said we need to backtrack a bit before talking about the capital issue. The bottom line is that what they call public good in economics, we don't have. Education, no schools. 62,000 schools in Nigeria as at 2014 or thereabout. All right? And there are almost 80 million children or more who should be in those schools. If you divide that, that is 1,200 students per school. We don't even have those numbers in the schools. I've been to schools in Zamfara, in Sokoto. I've been to schools in Yobe. I've been to schools even in Akwa Ibom, in Ogbomoso in the last few weeks. There's nothing going on in many of these places, and they're not being taught. So we have jobs for teachers. I mean, I'll hack back to what my friend Fela said. We need to create about 2 million jobs for teachers. And so in terms of financing the infrastructure, the issue is not just the financing, else we'll be rushing into taking more loans. We're owing $76 billion now. And I must say that it's not 12 billion that they borrowed in the last 3 years. It's almost $40 billion they borrowed because they devalued the currency by almost half. And then we moved from about 36 billion to where we are today, 76 billion. All right, so there's a lot to be done. And the last thing I'll say before I go is that until we start producing things ourselves and building things ourselves, we're going nowhere. Imported development will never work for us. Part of our ideas in infrastructure fixing is that our students, civil engineering students in this school, in this country, should be able to build little roads and get paid a token for it, among others. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next, of course, is the candidate of the Alliance for New Nigeria, Mr. Fela Durotoye. A lot of skills are being outsourced. Artisans, Nigerians have to go to neighboring countries to look for artisans to build infrastructure and all of that. Now, how are you going to close the infrastructure gap with this kind of challenge? And do you agree with the SDP candidate that it's really all about power, that power is at the base of us fixing our infrastructure gap?
Oh, yes, and let me quickly say to the average Nigerian who is out there, because a lot of times we throw this word infrastructure, and it's the only part that comes up with many trillions and billions of dollars.
What's your understanding of infrastructure?
Is simply everything that you need as the backbone to be able to get the nation working and to get the society working right. So yes, we're talking about power, we're talking about roads, we're talking about rail, we're talking about hospitals, we're talking about houses, we're talking about schools. These are the things that every society that works needs, and those things are things that last long, and they need what you call low interest or low cost financing. So let's talk about what is the most difficult thing or the greatest challenge we have with infrastructure and funding. Well, let's first understand that there is money all over the world looking for the next big project, low-cost money that is looking for infrastructure projects. The challenge why that money is not really coming to Nigeria anymore is because of two things. Number one, corruption, and number two, wastage. Let me quickly talk about wastage for a moment. Nigerian roads are constructed at the highest cost in any road construction per kilometer in the world. Yet, Nigeria has the second largest deposit of bitumen in the world, and we're still importing 90% of our bitumen. So we are seeing here complete waste of resources when we have what it takes to be able to build roads at cheaper costs, but we are making sure that we are doing it in a way, or let me put it this way, our political rulers are making sure that they're using infrastructure to siphon money for electoral funding. We will see that stop under an ANN-led administration. We will make sure that we reduce the cost of infrastructure. We will make sure that we use the money that we allocate to infrastructure, to all of the schools, hospitals, we will use them judiciously. So rather than use 28 billion naira to build one flyover in Ajah, we will make sure that we are able to use that money to construct much more that delivers to the people of Nigeria.
Thank you very much, candidate of the Alliance for New Nigeria, Mr. Fela Durotoye. Now to the Action Democratic Party candidate, Engineer Yabagi Yusuf. You know, when you hear engineer, you actually have some level of confidence that this might just be the skills that we need to fix Nigeria's infrastructure challenges. What exactly is the missing link here?
Well,
why
like
aren't we getting it right infrastructure-wise?
Exactly.
And what are you going to do? That's what we want to hear, your solutions to the infrastructure problem.
Yeah, our solution is first, leadership. That's the missing link between Nigeria and greatness. We are also going to make sure that we address the issue of stomach infrastructure, because that is very important to an average Nigerian. You may build all this infrastructure, believe you me, if people are not satisfied, they don't have food in their stomach, they will vandalize them. So we will address that issue. How do we do that? We will make sure that the government takes advantage of what God has given to us, which is turning these resources to the benefits of the citizens. How do we do that? We will attract foreign investment. We are not going to privatize, the entities, the state, companies, to friends. The problem we had was that it was an attempt to build infrastructure that we privatized power sector, but we did it wrongly. We privatized to ourselves. We don't have the capacity. We don't have the foreign investment to bring in. So we are going to center on attracting foreign investment. That's what you need. And to do that, you address the issue of insecurity, like I said, corruption. My colleague here has talked about corruption. Corruption should be when you jail somebody that is a friend of the president or working closely with the president, who have been found wanting, corruption will immediately take care of itself. Until we begin to do what other countries are doing, we will have problems with developing infrastructure. Like I said, we have gold mine, and that gold mine is yielding a lot. Only that it's been stolen. Everything that is accruing to this country is almost more than half of it is being stolen. Nigerian Senate has conducted studies, the various agencies have conducted studies, and they have come to the conclusion that Nigerian oil and gas sector belongs to a few. By the time you block all those leakages, believe you me, you will have enough to develop infrastructure. Corruption is the issue. If you can tackle it, foreign investments will come. That's how all other countries are doing it.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Sowore of the African Action Congress, what's your understanding of infrastructure? What do you think, what kind of infrastructure really do Nigerians need, and how are you going to fix that?
Thank you. I said earlier on that Nigeria was set up as a business, and it has been business as usual. Nigeria is also a country of contractors who are not builders, and we must return this country to people who can build and maintain infrastructure. What is infrastructure? Is everything that I stated earlier on in my opening statement regarding what you use to move people from place to place, what you use to facilitate education, what you use to facilitate health, what you use, even in this modern day, to facilitate communication, which is ICT infrastructure. And by the way, under our government in AAC, broadband will become a human right in Nigeria, because that is one of the biggest infrastructure we need to go into the future. And the rest is, of course, we need roads. We need over 17 million homes. You mentioned deficit in infrastructure development, particularly in building homes for our people. We need to maintain, we need to build, we need to create. We also need to innovate when it comes to infrastructure.
I'm sure we all know what we need. What we don't seem to know is how we will achieve those needs and meet those needs.
Just listen to me.
Go ahead.
I'm going to be president very soon, and you have to listen to me all the time. Yes. So
remember, no clapping, please. Thank you very much.
What you're saying,
we appreciate your cooperation so far.
You're taking away from my time, man.
Go ahead, please.
Yes. What you're saying is that we have a comprehensive plan, and I laid it out, to build infrastructure in this country. We would dualize all the highways in this country, because that was how public work brought America out of depression. In 1956, when they needed to create integration, they built roads, they built rail lines, they built telephone facilities, and they integrated, and they started producing, and they got out of poverty. We must build our country out of poverty.
All right, thank you very much. I will take the liberty at this point to indicate to my producers that I'll give all of you gentlemen 1 minute each to talk about the issue of data. A lot of people have said every economic projection that you actually want to make, you have to know the number of Nigerians there are. You have to know where they are, the young people, the women, the elderly, and all the rest of them. So without this basic information at your fingertips, how do you fix all of these problems that we're talking about here? Should I go this way? Okay, back to the candidate of the Young Progressive Party. 1 minute, please.
Yes. As Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, I was a member of the Committee of Governors, and we were funding and still fund, I believe, the central bank still funds the National Bureau of Statistics. The reason the central bank started funding the NBS is because we realized the importance of data, statistics. What's the inflation rate? How many people are we in this country? We don't know these things very accurately. So we invested in the NBS, but the NBS is focusing a lot on financial data, the inflation data. But the reason we are funding it is because the government does not take funding the NBS as a priority. The NBS is under the Ministry of National Planning, and they don't give it any real money. My government will make financing of statistical research a major priority. We will invest heavily in knowing the numbers. How many people are born in this country?
All right, thank you very much. 1 minute for Mr. Donald Duke. A lot of people say, we don't even know how many Nigerians there are. We don't know who is a Nigerian and who is a non-Nigerian. So how do you get it right if you don't get it right at that level?
The last census in Nigeria was 2006. We don't know our numbers. We are just approximating. Even the 200 million we mentioned is an approximate. We need to know the numbers. We need to have the data. We need to have a national ID card that has all the data of an individual, that has your individual data. It will help for crime. It will help for job creation. It has to be compulsory. You need a society, a modern living today, where you cannot function except you have some form of identification. So you cannot do banking, you cannot send your children to schools, you are not eligible to the NHS, the National Health Insurance Scheme, except. So it's almost compulsory, and you gather the data. Now, the NBS is a disaster. For anyone to say that unemployment in Nigeria, and that's their current statistic, is about 15%, is living in la-la land. Unemployment in this country, between unemployment and underemployment, you're looking at about 70%. And that's why I said earlier on that 70 to 80% depend on 20% of the population.
All right, thank you very much to Mr. Tope Fasua, Abundant Nigeria Renewal Party. Yep. You have 1 minute to tell us how really will you get this data together?
Thank you very much.
Yes.
You know, I was saying, I've been repeating the fact that, look, we haven't fixed the basics, but we're jumping the gun. Every country that we go to that's looking lovely and all of that is because they fix the basics. I was on a committee that worked on the Oransai report. And we discovered that they recommended that the 2,100 staff of Nigerian Bureau for Statistics should be reduced. And I was the one that moved against it. So why would we be reducing this? We have 8,900 wards in Nigeria. There's nothing wrong if you have 2 people gathering data in each of those wards. That is job creation.